Hey. So this is a new format. I'm calling it video before breakfast because I haven't had breakfast yet. Anyway, why do people have kids? Uh, okay. Let's just be weird right away, okay? Because there are so many minimalists that make videos about not having kids. No, I actually have no idea how many there are. I just know that Jenny Mustard made her own videos about being child-free and not having kids. But I know a few minimalists from my minimalist social circle that don't want kids, and that's fine. Like, you shouldn't even have to say that that's fine, but thanks to society's standards, you obviously have to in weird, awkward situations where the topic comes up. However, I have been asked by followers and friends and other minimalists we have these creepy, secret minimalist meetings, on Zoom. So I've been actually asked why I wanted kids, or whether I would like to make a video about how I got to that decision. In my case, it actually was a decision, but sometimes it isn't, I guess. Anyway, so why kids? Let's make a video about that, because there are a lot of videos out there about why I don't have kids as a minimalist, titling something like that. At least that's my perception in my bubble. And I've been asked that quite a few times. So I think it's really a topic for some people, obviously, because of a minimalist lifestyle that fits better somehow, not having kids. Like, it's easier to travel and to have fewer things and to just be that digital nomad person, I guess. I've never been that person really, so I don't know. But let's just say one thing. Yeah, it's easier probably for most people. But I think that it's still easier for minimalists to maintain a minimalist lifestyle than for any other people to maintain their lifestyle, whatever it is. Like, whatever important aspect of your life it is you want to maintain after kids, like traveling or, I don't know, partying and drinking. Is that a lifestyle? Yes, it will be harder with kids, but minimalism, if you're really a minimalist at heart, my belief is you will not have a problem with that just because you have kids. If you didn't have a problem before you had kids with maintaining few things afterwards, probably won't be much different. The only thing is clothes, like kids' clothes. If you want another one, you gotta store them somewhere, or you gotta spend money and energy to get them if you need them for the second one. So I think it's helpful if you know whether or not you want one or two kids in the beginning, because then you can say goodbye to all the things after you're done with the first one. I'm not really sure. A big part of me is saying, I'm done. I never want to be pregnant again. Pregnancy is awful. Thank God I am done with it. And the other part is saying, oh, but this whole journey, and it's so awesome and cute how they grow up, and they are so cute while shitting and crying all the time. Yeah, that's the two parts of it, Okay, but let's try and make this video a little bit more structured. How did I come to the conclusion that having kids would be a good idea for me, although I was such a minimalist? I always was a minimalist, so I've been a minimalist for always 20 years almost. So when I moved out from home, from where I lived with my mother, I went to nursing school, became a nurse, and I studied physics after working a while as a nurse. And I always maintained this kind of simple lifestyle. I always hated to have too many things in my life, and I just didn't like it. So when I moved out, for me, the perspective of kids was very far away. I never really thought about kids. I didn't like kids. I didn't want kids in my life. I very much related with the video that Jenny Mustard made and where she said something like she likes to have real conversation with adult people, and was very much like that. I still am, by the way. I really like to have adult conversation. So for me, spending time with kids was really never interesting. Like when I looked at the nurses that pediatric nurses, that specialty never really touched a nerve with me. And I always thought, like, why would you want to be a pediatric nurse if you can just wipe the big butts, right? No, that wasn't really what I was thinking. But in a way, I just didn't like to work with children because they are so fragile and their parents are so annoying. And having something super fragile mixed with something super annoying and stressed out, because all parents are always stressed out for some reason. I know. I will tell you in a minute why we are. Now I will tell you in 2 seconds. 1, 2, it's because we have a lack of sleep. Anyway, so this just kind of didn't seem appealing to me, and in no part of my personal life I had any contact with kids whatsoever. I had no friends with kids, I wasn't interested in friends with kids, and I really just didn't care about kids in any way. Not like I didn't care in, I hated them. I didn't hate kids at any point in my life. I just didn't think they were interesting, and it wasn't appealing to me to ever be a mother, because to become a mother you have to be pregnant for 10 months or 9.5, and that was not really something I wanted to be. I mean, just the whole appearance of a pregnant woman was utterly stressing me out. Like, I didn't want to be that. I took the pill for 14 years just to not be that. And I will never do that again, because I think taking the pill is awful. But anyway, that's something for another video probably. So yeah, this whole motherhood and pregnancy thing was something that usually freaked me out and was to be avoided at all costs. But on the other hand, I was raised as someone who was always told that not having children would be awful. And that is something, you know, I just want to get that off my chest, because I think this is so stupid to tell your children that, or to tell anyone that, like, if you don't have kids, you're going to be weird someday. Maybe you're going to be weird either way, who knows? But I've had a lot of people in my family that kept telling me, if you're not going to have kids someday, you're going to be the weird cat lady, or the weird lady without cats, which is even worse than the weird cat lady, you know, because at least she cares for something. No. So also, if I am weird and old and don't have kids, what harm does that bring to the planet again? I don't know what harm that does. I think it's really stupid to say that, because environmentally speaking, it's probably better if you don't have kids. So anyway, this is a story time video, so let's move on to the story here. I was in my early 20s, 22 maybe, yeah, when I was in nursing school, like 2nd year, and that was when I had this whole attitude about children, like, oh no, I never want children. I want a big, old apartment for myself, just expressing my weird, artsy traits and be me. So there were no kids in my imagination of me, like in 10 years or 20 years. I just had no kids in my imagination. Now it was always me alone in a big apartment without furniture. That was my idealist perception of what my future would be like. And yeah, maybe that is really, really minimalist, but I think that both things have nothing to do with each other. Like the whole minimalist living situation and the whole I don't want kids mindset are two separate things. And both have their origins, their different origins, and the issues that they may come from, like for me, for instance, this not wanting kids thing might have been related with always having been told that you need to have kids in order to be a good person someday or some other. And my minimalist lifestyle probably came from the fact that I was a messy teenager with a hoarderish room full of trash for the longest time of my teenage years. So if there's pressure, sometimes you just give into it and your mind just gives into it and you just want to get away from these perceptions that people put on you, these expectations, and that is just how I think this whole thing evolved for me. But it might be completely different for you, and I would actually be interested in hearing about your story in the comments. So if you want to share your perspective on the whole kids question or your decision-making process, if that's not too personal for you, please comment. I will read all my comments, I usually do. And I'm really interested in hearing about your story too, of course. Anyway, back to this weirdo and what happened in my 20s. So I worked in this hospital. It was a really small hospital, like a little family with very strict rules and a lot of nuns. So I worked in the maternity ward there, and I think this was one of the most uncomfortable parts of my whole apprenticeship, of my whole nurse education, because I don't know, I had more issues with getting into the whole routine of taking care of these women than I had with washing, 1,000 dicks. Seriously. Because women in the maternity ward, they are so vulnerable. I'm not saying that naked men aren't, but it is really something special. If you've worked there, you might know what I'm talking about. And I might not be able to put that into pretty English words. I'm really sorry. But for me, it was just something very, very special because you have to take care of the mother and the baby. Both are so vulnerable. The little baby just came into this world and has to adapt to all this weird stuff like noises and light. So, and the mother, most mothers have no clue what to do with a newborn, the new mothers, but the mothers that already had a child, they are not that much more advanced. So this situation when you have a kid and you're in the hospital is utter and total stress for most women, I think. And you might not even be able to see all of their stress, all of their fears as a nurse, because they can't even communicate that and you don't have the time. So, but anyway, this was a very intense experience for me, and I think it is probably for a lot of nurses that go through the education. So let alone all this responsibility and just how special this is, or it was to me. I never held a baby before. Just never. I think I hadn't even touched a baby. So for me, I felt like I think a lot of dads feel when they hold their kid for the first time. They just feel like, okay, let me get some prop here. This is baby. It's my kid's doll. Let's put a little beanie on her head, or his head, or their head, I don't know. So this is baby, and just when I held my first baby, it was like this. Don't drop it. Don't drop it. Don't drop it. Don't fucking drop it. Oh my god. Is it waking up? I think it's waking up. It's moving. Oh, it looks at me. I'm not your mother. I'm a nurse, okay? I'm going to be a nurse someday. Sister Amelia? Is anyone there? Should I just put her back under the light? No? Okay, just gonna hold her for a while. So I was really like that. I was holding the baby, like, oh, my arms were cramping because I was just flexing my muscles so much, just concentrating, not dropping the baby. And then some doctor came in and he ripped the baby off me and was like, hey, give me the baby. Okay, seems fine. Okay, here you have it again. It was really weird. Anyway, yeah, that was my nurse maternity ward experience, and that was the first time I held a baby. And at that time, that is not when something clicked with me, you know. That's not the moment, but it is part of the whole journey from being this, oh, kids, oh no, they can't make conversation, you know, you can't drink with them. Well, what would I want with a kid? Come on, like, it takes 18 years until they're cool, minimum. So from that to, oh my god, all this amazing shit is true, but the awful shit is also true. Okay, so took me a while. So what happened? It was actually during the part of my education when I worked in this maternity ward, when I had 2 experiences that were super weird and had to do with young mothers. I'm not judging any of these mothers, and neither should you. So please don't write any comments like, oh, what awful mothers, blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. It's just, you never see the whole person, especially if you're a hospital worker, you never see the whole person, and it's really easy to judge, and a lot of my colleagues do, and I don't like that. So I'm trying not to do that in general in my life, at my work. I'm not working as a nurse anymore because I'm not a people person. If you can't tell, I like to help people, but I'm not a people person. So I think it's better that I studied physics after that. Anyway, when I worked there was this young mother, I think she was 18 or 19, and she did not know who the father of her baby was. So the 2 dads that were the 2 possibilities, they came and visit. So usually moms stay at the hospital for 3 days. If everything is all right, they stay there for 3 days. Sometimes they stay for 5 days, and it might be even shorter today because just hospital want to save costs. So this woman's baby, it was a little boy, and he actually had a heart defect and had to be brought to another ward, for a pediatric ward for cardiopulmonary diseases, and with all the specialists that took care of the baby there. Because, the baby specialists don't work with the mothers. That's where the gynecologists work, So, gotta bring the baby someplace else. Which was actually another clinic, because the clinic where I worked didn't specialize in any of that. It was very basic hospital, where you only had like 3 or 4 different wards, and one of them was the maternity ward. So, this young mother expressed that she wanted to go home, and she said that quite a few times, and she said, I want to go home, I want to leave the hospital, can I leave? So this hospital was actually something called a Belegkrankenhaus in German. And that means that if you go to your gynecologist in their practice, then they will also attend to you in the hospital. And if you don't have a gynecologist, you cannot go to this hospital. I'm not really sure if that's that strict, but usually all the patients that I saw there had one of the Beleg gynecologists, so the gynecologists that work with the hospital. And they took care of, I think you say OBGYN, right? We just say gynecologist, so I will just go with that for now. So on the weekend, usually there aren't so many doctors there in a general big clinic. And we had to call the doctor so they could come in because it was a weekend and just do the paperwork for the patient to go home. And the patient was constantly asking, like, can I go home, please, can I go home? And we were all very concerned for her. She was a young mother and she was very emotional, and her baby was also in another clinic. We didn't know what was wrong with them. So we could all pretty much understand where this was coming from. So we called the doctor, although usually a young mother wouldn't go home after just 1.5 days or 2 days. She should have stayed the proper 3 or 4 days in her case for further surveillance of bleeding and all sorts of other complications, like it was usually done. So when the doctor arrived on a Saturday or Sunday, I don't remember, he got to the mother and we were all standing around the bed, and he said, like, okay, your vitals are fine, you look fine, did an examination and everything. And then he said, like, okay, so you really want to go home? And she said, yeah, I'm confident I want to go home. And the doctor said, sure, you want to see your kid, right? Because he's in the clinic. And she said, no, I want to go to the soccer game. That was story number 1. And I don't know, I just felt really bad, and the whole room just went silent like that. I don't know if she went to the soccer game. I'm not sure what happened after that. I never saw her again. I just wish her well and her baby. I hope they are in a good place, and I don't know, but it was definitely not a joke. Anyway, story number 2 from the same hospital was another baby and mother, or just situation. I think the most prominent thing in my memory is the situation of these families, or the situation of these people. And I just remember that there were 20 stories like this that I saw during my education on that ward. But what always stuck with me was the situation that always had something desperate in it, that always had something sad in it. And that stayed with me. Anyway, the second baby was a preemie, and it was really, really small and had jaundice. So it was on the verge of becoming critical and just needed a lot of light therapy. And so it was a lot in the nurse's room, or we had this treatment room, and next to it was our break room, and then the nurse's room, which is the room where you do all the paperwork or fix injections and just prepare stuff that you needed as a nurse. Anyway, the baby was more there than with its mother, and so we usually try to bring the baby and the mother together as much as possible, so they can bond and they can get to know each other, like, more than before, because you know your baby before it's out, you really do. But it's really, really helpful if you do some proper bonding, like have a lot of skin contact going on after your kid is outside, because it just gives a lot of stability to the baby, but also to yourself, to go through the bonding experience like right away. Anyway, so the mother, sometimes she came in and she just looked at the baby, and we always asked her, you want to hold her, you want to nurse her, can we help you with anything? And she didn't want to nurse the baby, and that's fine, because she was struggling with that decision, and then later she made this decision that she didn't want to nurse her baby, and she wanted to take the pills that just prohibit the whole milk production cycle. So that's usually something a lot of healthcare workers and nurses are a little bit sad about, but we also should not interfere with a woman's decision whether she wants to breastfeed or not. So I think I would always choose breastfeeding over anything, really anything. I would go to the worst pain just to breastfeed. And I'm still breastfeeding my kid up until this day, occasionally, like just once a week or something, and she's almost 3. So call me a nerd, call me a weirdo, I don't give a crap, because this is my only child, and yeah, she's gonna stop someday soon. I feel it's gonna be over in a few weeks, I guess. Anyway, I'm not judging people who are nursing their kids until they're 4. I'm not judging people who are not nursing their kids at all. It's none of my business. I don't even know why I said this, but maybe just because it adds to the whole struggle. Yeah, because all mothers struggle with something, and I don't know what her personal story was, but she was just never there. She had another kid, and she expressed multiple times that she wanted to go home and be with her other kids, or her other kid, I don't know how many it was. But she didn't want to be with a newborn. And in that case, there are a lot of things that can be wrong, like postnatal depression and other psychological issues that we cannot go into throughout the course of this video. But back then, I remember her being a very, very harsh person with her kids that she already had, but also with a newborn baby. And it just struck a nerve with me, because I was brought up in an environment like that, a very strict parenting style, very harsh. And so I just felt for that little baby who was just almost in critical condition and might have been transferred. Luckily it wasn't. It all was okay in the end, and they could go home after a week. But with these preemies, it can be really, really hard, and they are so fragile, and they are skinnier and more fragile than just mature babies. It's really something special. And I remember that at that time, I often felt like, oh man, let's take baby again. I want to take you home. I will take good care of you, my baby. I will take good care of you. You will not have to suffer. I will be a nice mommy. So I know it's super weird for me because, I never wanted to be a mother. It wasn't in my head. Of course it wasn't. I was 20 something. But, I just had this crossed out of my life. I was so sure that I never wanted to be a mother, and that it wouldn't change at any point. But at that point, when I had this little preemie in my arms a lot, and I got more comfortable with holding babies like super fast, just don't worry. And I just felt so sad for her not being held by her mother, not being held by the father. And I thought, like, this kid is going back into this family, and they don't look like they're seeking help. They don't look like they care. I mean, I don't know, maybe they did, they just weren't able to. But if you offer help, that's just like the only thing you can do. You can offer help, and everything else you just have to look at it and just say nothing. Like, because at some point, this is a normal struggle. Yeah, not every child goes into a warm, loving family. Some go into a cold, strict, harsh family and just get miserable. Yeah, I don't know. And this is just a situation where you feel like the life of this kid could be so different if their parents would just do this and that. It seems easy. It's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy. But at this point where you see this little kid that has not had any experience, any bad experience in life, yet. And you see how it can go one way or another if it just shifts a small bit. And it just, I don't know, for me this was very hard, and I think this was the first time that I took something home, because I'm not the person that takes work problems home. I really don't. Not as a physicist, not as a data scientist, not as a nurse. I left all the cancer and all the sadness in the hospital. That's just who I am. And I think that's actually pretty healthy. But during this time, I really constantly thought about this one baby. And it was really, really weird for me, because I was never that person. I was thinking about this baby and I was like, oh my, if I could just do this and take the baby home with me. And then I was thinking, because that's actually what got me through the whole thinking process. I was thinking, what would I do if I had a baby now? Like, would I be miserable? Because I always thought that if I had a baby, I'd just be miserable. I wouldn't want to be a mother. And I just, would make me and the kid miserable at some point. So that got me thinking, if I had to provide for a kid, just any kid, maybe like in a weird movie scenario, like just this kid would be dropped in my lap and I would have to take care of it, like in a weird movie. And what would I do? Would I be able to do that? And then I clicked, because I said, yes, I'm a privileged person. Even though I'm just in nursing school, I live in a welfare state and I have all the opportunities, and I would make it work, and I would not waste a lot of money on toys, and I would do this and this and that. And the weirdest thing about this is that it is true, and it has been true, and I have kind of proved that to myself, because that is exactly what I did when I had my kid. And from that moment, when I knew in my heart that I could do it in whatever circumstances, just because I'm equipped to be a mother, I'm equipped to be a good person with a kid, as good as possible. So just because I knew that I was basically equipped to be a mother, I knew that I could do that. Somehow I would make it work. That gave me confidence, and I just knew it in my heart from that moment on until I had my kid. I just knew for some reason I did. And I hope that this baby is well. She's probably a teenager by now. And I hope that she's well, and her mother is well, and her siblings are well. I don't know, you never know, because you just see them a few days of their life, and then their whole life unfolds, and you don't know what happens after that. Which is sad, but it's also beautiful, because you can imagine all the best scenarios in your head, you know. It's just like hope for a miracle or hope for something good to happen in their life. And just be there if they need anything, you know, because I think it's also really important during that time, during that vulnerable few days, that you offer everything that you have to these mothers and the kids. Because as I can say from my perspective, from being in the hospital, it just means the world, whatever that nurse says to you. If it's like the simplest sentence, the simplest little phrase of kindness, just means the world to these patients. Anyway, we're not getting emotional here, right? Anyway, so that was my journey from not wanting kids to accepting the idea of being a mother at some point in my life. And it just came with this experience of holding babies and seeing how vulnerable they are, and just understanding that it's not the end of the world if you have one, right? This is not comfortable. Sitting on my bed, and it's not comfortable. Okay, anyway. And a few other things happened after that. Like, I just saw mothers every once in a while yelling at their kids, or I just saw mothers struggling with, I don't know, not yelling. And I often thought, like, could I do this better? Could I? And when I saw like a crying kid, that was like one incident with the mother that was really violent towards her kid in a train station, and she was almost hitting the kid and shouting badly at her kid. It was a little boy, and he was just he was crying all over the place, and you could see how he was panicking and afraid and completely shutting his brain off. And in that situation, just to go on yelling doesn't make any sense. It just, the kid freezes, and if you yell at that kid, the kid won't even hear you. So I think I saw a lot of these situations in public, and I always thought like, oh man, I just want to do better. I just want to do it like a little bit better, just not yell at my kid in public like that. I think it's normal that parents yell. So if you've ever yelled at your kid and shouted and been really loud and felt bad about it afterwards, that's normal. And the fact that you're beating yourself up about it is probably good, because, you know, it shows you that something went wrong, something went off, and you lost it. You processing this and not denying it and not saying like, oh, it's gonna be fine, that's actually a good thing. Anyway, a lot of these experiences, just for me, they led to the whole idea of being a mother myself, because I thought, you know, I want to do it better. I just want to do it. I can do it. And at some point of my life, I also feel like I was this finished human being, like this adult person. And I thought like, I have things to teach a kid now. I know stuff. I can sustain myself and survive on this planet. And who am I gonna teach all this stuff to? Just like, gonna start a YouTube channel or what? Anyway, I think that there are no good reasons. So why am I telling you this? It's because I don't think that there is one good reason to have kids. Not one. They're all stupid. They're either selfish or romantic. They're all stupid in my opinion. If you want kids, just have kids. It's just like, when I talk to people about this, I always felt like there were good and bad reasons, and I just want to be done with this idea. I just don't want this idea in my videos, that there is a good and a bad reason for kids. In this particular video, I don't want this idea. There is no good or bad reason. You're not a better person because you want to have kids, because you just adore kids so much. And I also think that it doesn't even matter in whether you are going to be a good or not so good mother, or having more trouble or less with your kid and your parenting, if you are just coming from this point of, oh, I love kids so much. I have seen mothers that never wanted kids and didn't think they were interesting, and all of a sudden they got pregnant and they became the most awesome parents. So no, I'm just 100% rejecting the idea of good intentions in having kids playing any role in anything. Yeah. And so I've always heard this question as a minimalist: why do you have kids as a minimalist? Why do you want kids as a minimalist? And how did your life change? I can make another video about that, because my life changed a lot. But honestly, my intentions for having kids were just, I think I can do a decent job in having kids. I think I can do a decent job as a parent. And at some point I also thought, like, I saw these parents struggling or losing their shit with their kids, and I thought to myself, like, I can do better. I cannot yell at my kid. And I've kept that promise to myself. I mean, I have yelled at my kid, of course, but I'm working on that every day, to be calm and to be good with my kid. And I really hope, and I work on it every day, that I never lose my shit like that. Because, I don't know, does things to the brain of a kid you can't imagine. So I don't want my kid to go through something like that, especially because I think that if you start losing your shit, you're gonna lose it more than just once. So yeah, that's my story. I became a mother because I thought I can do it. I became a mother not because I thought kids were super awesome, or I don't know, and not like I was missing anything in my relationship or anything. I believe actually that if you have like a bad relationship, it becomes worse if you have kids. That's not my wisdom here. It's from Casey Neistat actually. But yeah, I think if you have like a good relationship going on, it can become more intense with kids, and if you have issues, they will become more prominent if you have kids, because you will have less sleep, you will have more stress, and you will just be more prone to anger and frustration and just shouting at your significant other than without a kid. So in the end, was it the right decision to become a mother? I think I wouldn't make this video if it wasn't. Having a kid means less time for yourself, less time for everything. But I think if you bring a kid into your life, it is like the most significant person that you can ever have in your life, and it's like the most significant relationship you can ever have. Not like better than a relationship that you have with your spouse. It's just so different. The emotions and the love that you feel for a kid are just so different from the love for your partner. It's just another form of love. So it's not even competing, you know. It's just like this very, very intense thing that you can only have with a kid. And I would not want to miss that for anything in the world, because that experience alone just, yeah. Did I hate being pregnant? Absolutely. Just like every freaking day of pregnancy was just, I don't know, pain, trouble, annoying, just constant fear. But it was all worth it. Absolutely worth it. I'm not sure if I want to go through that like a second time. Sometimes I think like it would be cool to have a second kid, because just being an only child myself, I never really liked that. I always wanted a brother, but I wanted an older brother, and I never got one, because that's impossible unless you adopt one. I should talk to my mother and ask her why she didn't adopt an older kid. Yeah, that would have been an option. No, really. I think sometimes I think, oh, it would be nice if she had a sibling. But then I also think like, oh, no more pregnancy. So I don't know if you're now more afraid of having kids or less. If you want me to talk about this kind of stuff more, please let me know. I think kids are beautiful, but I think adult life without kids is also beautiful. And I think if you're like, if you're good with your own decision, then it's probably going to be the right decision for you. The only thing that I know for sure is that these things can change, and I was so sure for a long time, even after these experiences when I was holding these kids and I was feeling for them, and I was just like, I felt so sorry for them, and at some point I just thought, oh, I could do this. I want to do this for a kid and be there for a kid. Just any kid, it doesn't even have to be my own. I always wanted to adopt, by the way, for a long time, but just we couldn't afford that. However, I'm pretty sure that decisions can change, you know, like I went from this person who never wanted kids to the person that did want kids, and it wasn't even in that moment. That was just like the foundation of it, and from that moment on, when I held this first kid, or the second one maybe, I just felt that I could do it. But that wasn't the moment when I decided I wanted to be a mother. I think that this decision just came over time. It was a really slow process, and it was not like something I was super sure about. And I don't think you have to be, you know. Just be aware of the fact that the whole opinion on kids can change. The opinion that I had, I was pretty sure about that for a long time. Not just, I think through a lot of my 20s, I was pretty sure about that. And at some point it just shifted, and I thought, yeah, no, I'm an adult person. I could do this now. And I think in many ways, this part of just making up your mind about what you want, that is the hardest part. Actually getting there and deciding with your partner when you want to have kids, that's not the hard part. I think the hardest part is to be honest with yourself about what you want. And I didn't know that for a long time. I didn't even know whether or not I wanted kids. I just said that I didn't because I didn't like other people's kids. And I still kind of don't. But for me personally, you know, my own kid, I just love and adore her. She's like the awesomest kid of all. The other kids, I still sometimes think like, well, I'm not interested in what this kid is saying. It's just saying kid gibberish. But if my kid is saying some weird stuff and just babbling on about whatever boring doll she's babbling about, that's something I'm interested in. That is honestly, that's the weirdest thing. Like, usually I'm not interested in other kids at all, but my own, for some reason I care, you know, probably because I'm her mom, and that's how it's supposed to be, and that's how biology works its miracle, I guess. Anyway, so I'm not telling you to not have kids or have kids. I'm not saying that as a minimalist it makes sense to not have kids, because I think it really doesn't make a difference if you're a minimalist or not. You have to make that decision for yourself, and probably no video in the world will help you with it. This is just my little experience as a tiny little human on this huge planet. And I hope you could take something out of it. And if not, then I'm sorry, maybe watch another video. I have plenty of minimalism videos. Anyway, I wish you a cool, nice day. Gonna have my water and some coffee now. Can't drink. Yep. Gonna take my baby now and put it in her doll bed, and then gonna do some working, serious adult stuff. Why are you still here? The video is over. Oh, no, I didn't say it. Okay, that's it.